Hello students, welcome for today's session. In today's session, we will study about document type definition. Before starting with document type definition, let us try to understand the differences between well-formed and validated documents. XML documents we are talking about. So, a validated XML document must use a DTD. But a well-formed XML document need not use a DTD. A validated XML document must have at least one root element in it, which has to be defined in its DTD. But in case of well-formed XML document, it does not need to have any elements defined in the document at all. A validated XML document must have a reference to an external DTD file. A well-formed XML document does not use a DTD file. A validated XML document has an XML parser that checks the validity of the structure of this document against the structure defined in the DTD and throws exceptions if there are any discrepancies. In case of well-formed XML document, XML parser does not perform any checking whatsoever on the data. So these are few differences between a validated XML document and a well-formed XML document. Now coming to the next topic, DTD. A DTD or a document type definition is a set of structural rules called declarations, which specify a set of elements that can appear in the document, as well as how and where these elements may appear. DTDs also provide entity definition. Not all XML documents need a DTD. Use of a DTD is related to the use of an external style sheet for XHTML documents. External style sheets are used to impose a uniform style over a collection of documents. DTDs are used when the same tag set definition is used by a collection of documents, perhaps by a collection of users, and the documents must have a consistent and uniform structure. A document can be tested against the DTD to determine whether it conforms to the rules the DTD describes. Application programs that process the data in the collection of XML documents can be written to assume the particular document form. Without such structural restrictions, developing such applications would be difficult, if not impossible. A DTD can be embedded in an XML document whose syntax rule it describes, in which case it is called as an internal DTD. Or the alternative is to have the DTD stored in a separate file, in which case it is called as an external DTD. Because external DTDs allow use with more than one XML document, they are preferable. A group of users defines a DTD for their particular kind of data, and they all use that DTD, which imposes structural uniformity across all of their documents. It is common knowledge that the earlier errors in software systems are found, the less expensive it is to fix them. The situation is similar in the case of DTDs. A DTD with a DTD with an incorrect or inappropriate declaration can have widespread consequences. Fixing the DTD and all copies of it is just the first step and the most simplest step. After the correction of the DTD is completed, all documents that use the DTD must be tested against the DTD and often modified to conform to the changed DTD. Changes to associated style sheets also might be necessary. Syntactically, a DTD is a sequence of declarations. 4 possible keywords can be used in a declaration. Element used to define tags, @list used to define tag attributes, entity used to define entities, and notation used to define data type notations. So now we will watch a quick video and understand how to create a DTD.
Now let's create a DTD from scratch. Notice the XML document that we want to create a DTD for, because we want to validate. We want to make sure that any other document that we're trading information in an XML format matches the structure of this one. You'll notice people is our root element, and under the root element we have one husband tag. There's the second husband tag. Now we have an attribute in here that we haven't talked about yet, so don't worry about that. We'll get to it before we actually validate this. Within the husband, we have name, age, and wife. And then within wife, we have W, name, and age. So we need to build a DTD, a document type definition, that will describe this particular XML document. What we're going to do here is we're simply going to open a tag, put an exclamation point, and in all caps, put element, put a space, and let's start with our root element and say inside the root we want to have the element called husband. And notice this particular husband tag can appear, the asterisk means 0 or more times. Okay, and then we simply close that out. Now, let me show you a gotcha. If you're a programmer, you will tend to not put this space in here, because that's the way you call a method in most programs. You'll have to put a space in here or it'll shout at you when you try to validate with it, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But just watch for that. Now, we've taken care of our root element, so now let's go from there. What about that husband element? Well, in the husband element, what's going to be inside there? Well, name, notice over here, name, age, and wife are inside the husband element. So we'll put those in there. We won't put any kind of symbol in there saying that they can only appear once. A husband should only have one name, should only have one age, and should only have one wife, right? Yeah, I know there's situations where you may have more, but we don't want to get into that. This XML is complicated enough, okay? So next thing, notice now let's deal with these. So let's go here next. And let's say, okay, we've taken care of the people and husband can be in there. Now we've taken care of husband, what can be in there? And let's talk about each of these now. The element name, what's inside name? Nothing, but what kind of data goes in there? PC data is going to be in there, and that means parse data, that when our XML parser, when we're validating this document, it can make sure that there's data in there. Then we'll do the same for age. And in a different video, we will talk about the various types that can go in here. Okay, so now we've taken care of name and age. Then let's go back and catch this wife tag. We've dealt with name and age. Now let's talk about wife. And notice inside wife right here, we have something more than data. We have actual elements in there, so we need to list those. We've got a W, name, and an age. Get my typing right here. And we'll say that you can have 0 or more of those. And then we will point out that W name is taking PC data. And we'll close it. Now, if I were to validate this right now, hopefully it would be okay. I'm going to have an issue with this attribute. We'll get to an attribute in a later video. But what this is telling it is this structure needs to be here. There needs to be a people tag and inside there a husband tag, right? 0 or more times. Then inside the husband tag there should be a name, an age, and a wife, only one. Then inside that name tag you're going to have regular data. Inside the age tag, you're going to have regular data. Inside the wife tag, you're going to have 2 more tags called W, name, and age, and there can be many of those. and then inside that W name you're going to have PC data. Now notice I didn't have to address age again here because I've already addressed it that it's taking PC data. Now in a later video we'll actually validate this against this XML document, and all I'm going to say about validation now is it depends on what environment you're in, how you actually go about validating. We are actually going to have to run a program that takes the XML document and takes the DTD document and compares them to each other to see if they match. Now obviously I forgot to do something here. Let's save this document, and I'm just going to stick it out on the desktop. I'll call it people DTD. Notice the .dtd extension, change it to all files, and I'll save that to the desktop. So that's a very simple generic DTD document. We'll use it later to validate and show you how that's done.
Welcome back, students. I hope you have watched the video and understood how we have to create a document type definition. The video was shown to you so that you understand practically how a XML document is taken and then a document type definition is created. Alright, so we'll see you in the next session. Thank you, students.